Hi, guys. I am so excited that we are here today. I think when you reached out to me through LinkedIn, I didn't expect the conversation to be here because it was
Yeah.
a very random connect, I should say. I'm always used to people saying, hey, can we connect for a role or can we connect for, they're either selling me something or they want something, right? So when Anu reached out and we had that initial conversation about how we can collaborate with Sama Health, I honestly didn't think that we'd be here.
It's the
And
same.
Yeah.
that Zoom meeting that we had, it was supposed to be, I think, half an hour, but I think we went
1 hour,
way
15
over.
minutes.
Yeah.
1 hour, 15
I think we
minutes.
bonded on a spiritual level. Like you just like the bond just kept increasing.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think I'd like to think that's how even this podcast is happening, right? We spoke about conversations that are often overlooked, conversations that are often misunderstood, and especially as South Asian women. I read somewhere that we are basically born with anxiety, but we don't have a name for it, right? Because as young children, we see our moms, we see our aunties, we see our grandmoms. There's just so much of burden on them, but it's always considered as duty. Or this is how things are. This is life. You have to accept it and move on. And so I think having those kind of conversations inspired us to start this podcast and call it Bring It to the Table, because honestly we want to bring conversations right here, right to the table, and just bring about more awareness, bring about more insights, and just normalize and destigmatize the things that we thought were taboo. And I'd love to sort of start off with, I know I gave a little bit of an intro there in terms of anxiety and I still hesitate to use the word generational trauma because it sounds so clinical,
Yeah.
right? To like a lay person such as myself, I don't know what that means. Like, because trauma is such a heavy word,
It is.
and I don't think we are ready to acknowledge that. When our mom was, I think, the earliest memory or like the freshest memory that I have where I kind of like took me back was, I had my friend's mom who was going through an illness. It was Ramadan, but she was still slogging in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And she was making all these dishes, and then the men came, and then she was like serving them, and then she went to pray, and then she served them dinner. And I asked her, wait, auntie, I didn't see you eat. She's like, oh no, I already had a sip of water from the kitchen. I'm good. I need to pray. I need to do X. I need to do Y, Z. And I was like, but why is that your job? Why isn't it like more like why isn't everyone sitting and doing this
Yeah,
together, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she told me, but this is our duty. This is what we do. And I was like, but that's not right.
Yeah.
But I also felt scared to like be like, wait, is this like abuse? Like you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Like you don't know.
Yeah. There's
So-
so much to like unpack when it comes to trauma, when it comes to things like this.
Exactly. So I know you are a psychologist and also the directing partner of FemFam. So I'd like to sort of get your clinical diagnosis of this. And then Sukayna, as the founder of FemFam, I'd love for you to give your take from either through lived experience or through like from a layperson's lens.
Definitely. I think Anu can start. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's get into the nitty gritty first.
Yes.
Well, one thing that I've come across, right, when I was studying psychology and I was like trying to understand what trauma is based on what I was taught, right,
Yeah.
is something out of the ordinary happening that is trauma. In some cases, that is true. Say, for example, like a car accident or something that is so acute, it just happened and that is absolutely shocking, right? Trauma it's way too complex for us to just categorize it into like, okay, if it happens only from certain events, is it traumatic? No, trauma can be very micro as well. It can build up.
Yeah.
And we carry these wounds a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, growing up, I'm talking about like my grandmother's time, right? Growing up, she grew up in a place where speaking out loud was probably not considered okay. Like,
Yep.
no, you're not supposed to be talking. Do your job. If you need to go to school, go to school. If we ask you to stop going to school, you would stop going to school.
Yeah.
And then after that, you would get married. And then after that, you're supposed to completely submit to your husband. And you're supposed to comply with every single thing that goes on and about,
Yeah.
right? Okay. But she's a human being too. She has dreams too.
Yeah.
Many a time. And the scariest part is then they have kids,
Right.
right? This is something that I've seen. They have kids, and then the kids go like, oh, mom is like so humble. Mom is so good at like always taking care of everyone. I kind of want to be with the person like my mom who, is easy to work with. She does everything. She's so innocent.
Yeah.
That's not innocence. That is her just kind of accepting the pain that has been
Right.
handed down to her as a platter in the name of duty.
Right.
And it makes me so upset to see how this is slowly kind of it bleeds through generations,
course.
right? It bleeds through generations. And I'm not talking about just women getting the brunt of
Yeah.
it. Women eventually start modeling these behaviors in some cases, or it's the complete, it shows up in different ways.
Of course.
And then sometimes with sons, it's like, okay, that's how it's supposed to be, right? That's how it's supposed to be. And they start getting this skewed version of, okay, this is how my partner is supposed to be. And that means if my partner is going to be doing all of this, I have to take all the burden of all the labor. And, there's this severe imbalance of just roles. And that's how, these toxic gender roles come to
Yeah.
play as well.
Yeah.
So you see how it's all very silently passed down.
Yeah.
It's not like something major or something massive has happened where everyone's like shaking their heads away.
Right.
But rather it happens slowly,
Right.
silently. And although we carry our strengths, there's a lot of injuries also that is inherited
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
So I think that's what generational trauma means based off of what I've understood and based
Yeah.
off of what I've seen
Yeah.
clinically. That's kind of what generational trauma looks like, at least in the South Asian community.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's more complex than that, but that was just
Of
like
course.
yeah.
I mean, like if you look at, I think I was doing some reading about like not just generational trauma, but the science behind the inheritance of trauma, right? And so it gets passed on like in vitro, right? Like your grandmother's trauma, the genes, the genetics behind it.
Yeah.
And while I'm still such a newbie to it, I'm kind of seeing that, wait a second, a lot of things that you thought, like you need to see, oh my God, like, you're doing the exact same thing that your mom does when you're stressed. And I've heard so many people tell me that. And I'm like, I don't know, is it a conscious behavior? Is it a subconscious behavior? Is it because that's how I've seen her deal with it? So now I've got it and now I'm passing it on to like my children. And so I think there has to be a conscious effort from our side through education and awareness, of course, because you can break the cycle.
Absolutely.
It's not something that you need to be like, man, it's like, it's in my genes. So you're predispositioned to pass it on and your kids are going to get it. But I think it's really about understanding, like you said, the trauma, giving it a word almost. And that is something that is so new to Desi culture.
Yeah.
Like we don't have like, I mean, even if you look at the language, what is the Desi word for depression or anxiety? Like, I don't know if there's one that exists in Malayalam. Like, to be very honest with you, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, and it's like,
Is it gabrahat?
but that's scared,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
so there's all of those things. So again, since you're a storyteller, a journalist, and the founder of FemFam, I'd love to get your take on it as, from the lens of storytelling and, how, if you've come across such stories and how do because you give it the voice, if you look at it, right? Like we are struggling to articulate our thoughts and you sort of give us the words and the stories and the feelings.
No, you're too kind. Thank you. But honestly, growing up, I've realized that, like you mentioned, that a lot of education is needed, a lot of awareness is needed. And because of that lack of awareness and education, we see that there is a gap of understanding where, like, I mean, from my personal experience, I've noticed that women are more aware and self-aware and more in tune when it comes to like terms as such and like growth and mental health. And if I were to look at the men I've come across in my life generally, in my like networking and in all such cases, I've noticed that they're not as aware. I mean, obviously, I don't know, like, this is just from my personal
Right.
experience, and I found that very interesting. And I think it's because perhaps these conversations that should be happening at home don't happen at home. And, if we look at like back home, India and Pakistan, we see so many cases where women's voices are suppressed and go through all kinds of things. I remember there was a case in Pakistan that happened a few years ago that literally shook the world. It was crazy. The Noor Muqaddam case where this woman was beheaded for rejecting a man. Yeah. And
This is 2025, right? Just checking.
It's just
okay.
like goosebumps when I
Right.
found out. And I remember recording for a video for Instagram, and I put it out, and I was furious. I was like, what have we come to as society? How is this even happening? How is it that people are just like, we should be out protesting, obviously not here currently, but I'm saying back home.
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to bed at night and sleeping comfortably when something so horrific has happened? And when I really sat and thought about it, I was like, you know what? I see perhaps there is a lack of awareness and education when it comes to like in the houses itself, in these households. How often are these conversations happening? How often are the men educated, fathers, sons? How often are all these group of people like coming together and with an open mind and talking about these things that are so incredibly important? Because really it begins with awareness and education that we will eventually see change. Yes, we can unlearn and learn again, and that's the entire process of like growth. But everyone has to come together as a team, for change to happen. It can't just be, the women taking the lead. There has to be more awareness in the space when it comes to, from what I've noticed, when it comes to men specifically. But that being said, I've also seen like men who are so self-aware. We came across a couple of people recently who we collaborated to grow FemFam, and they're going for therapy, they're working on themselves, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is what we want to see in 2025. But yeah, when it comes to traumas and triggers itself, my therapist has always told me that, Sukayna, your triggers are a gift because it gives you insights into who you are and the person that you will mold into reaching your highest potential. Because whenever we look at traumas, we always have this negative view of it, and it's like, oh my God, you know what? And then we, sometimes get into this whole blame mode, like, oh my God, because of my mom, I'm like this, and because of my dad, I'm like this, and only if they didn't do this, I wouldn't have this, But it's like my mentor and my therapist, both of them changed my view on it to see it in a way that if I didn't have these traumas, if I came into this world perfectly fine with perfectly normal parents who are completely perfect in their own way, and my upbringing was completely perfect, right? For lack of a better term, then where would the growth be? Where, how would I do my inner work? How would I discover my strength? How would I discover the power I hold as a woman to reach my highest potential?
Right. Yeah, no, that is so powerful. And I think that's something that I've heard my mom say a lot as well. But see, I'll tell you where I'm coming from, right? We are trying to change years, if not generations, of a certain way of looking at things.
Yep.
It's literally telling a person that the color they thought was pink is actually blue. No matter how hard you try, you're still going to revert and be like, nope, that's pink. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And as much as people want to change or have conversations, it's still very awkward for them. I remember when I told my family that I was going for therapy, and it was pin drop silence, right? The first thing, like after that awkward silence, and my aunt got up and she's like, "Can I just make some chai?" Because apparently that solves everything and
I
reverses the
mean,
conversation.
she does have a point, though. I'm not gonna lie.
She does have a point.
We go back in time. This conversation never happened. And then like the response I got, right, was or the reaction I got is, "Why are you going for therapy?" Almost in a way of, dude, this is like so shameful. Like, you have nothing to be depressed about. You don't have anything to be anxious about. You have a husband, you have kids, you have a house, you're financially independent. Like, there's literally nothing in this world that should depress you. And now you're just giving a bad name to your parents because, like, now they have failed. And I was like, no, guys, like it's not like that. It's very different. And I can understand why they think like that. Because again, it's the conditioning. If you look at movies, like I think as recent, maybe like the late 90s is when they stopped it. Anything related to mental health was connected to like asylums
Yep.
or being committed to a hospital and being given shock therapy, and you're walking around like zombies. And everything else, right, beyond that extreme viewpoint was seen as self-sacrifice and love. Like, hey, you can't pursue the degree that you want because your parents don't let you. It's not your parents' fault. They are saying this out of love. They want you to be, I don't think for women, the approach was ever financial independence. It was always like, hey, if you do your bachelor's, we can definitely get you a really good proposal to get married. Right? That master's was like, if your husband lets you,
Yeah.
And then, and it's funny because I'm like, okay, so how do you change this mindset? There is that physical rewiring of the brain almost,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And also, our parents were raised in a generation, our grandparents were raised in a generation where there wasn't information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's only now through Instagram, TikTok, internet, Snapchat. I'm sure there are like hundreds others that I'm not aware of. Reddit. And I don't think like there'll be a 60-year-old South Asian housewife
Yeah.
who is on Reddit
Yeah.
educating herself, or on TikTok, who is again like actively learning, because she is still bound by duty and the things that she believes are self-sacrifice, because her sole purpose is that of a caregiver,
Yeah.
not as a provider, right? That's the husband. So how do you change that mindset? Like, I'm sure you must have come in your very many cases. Like, how do you rewire that mindset?
Well, the whole processing of rewiring is not easy at all. This is something that I actually keep telling many of my clients, right? Of course, none of them are South Asian, but
Right.
there's still a lot of intersectionality between other cultural backgrounds as compared to South Asian. There's still a couple of like shared lived experiences there because of just historical stuff that's happened to every one of us.
Yeah.
Right. So I keep telling them that you can call us like the cursed generation or the chosen one. It is up to you to choose whatever words you want to use. But I think a huge one of us, especially the millennials and the Gen Z, right, folks, they're really challenging growth.
Yeah.
They're really challenging growth. They're doing this by no longer hiding behind their emotions, no longer hiding behind the sense of, oh, I'm going to be stoic through this. No, if they're upset about something,
Yeah.
they will complain about it. They will cry about it.
Yeah.
Which is oftentimes seen as, oh, they're whining or they're
Right.
complaining. Oh, wah.
Right.
No, if they're feeling a certain way, they're absolutely entitled to expressing it
Right.
in a safe and secure manner, as long as they're not going and hurting anyone.
Yeah.
And they're getting it out of their system. Absolutely, let's do that. Identifying what does not sit well with us
Yeah.
and what does sit well with us. Identifying our core inner values, right? And then then with the help of what we've identified, understanding what boundaries mean in a South Asian household.
Yeah.
If you say, Mom, I don't want you to do this because it's violating my boundary.
Chappal nikal
Totally. They're like, hold on, let me show you a boundary. Here's a screwdriver. Let me just, unscrew the your door. Or like, why is your door closed? Leave it
my God,
open.
yeah.
Right? And I mean, the amount of times I've heard that, and it's so funny because with my kids, their doors are always closed. And I keep telling my husband, like, you know what? This is a luxury. This is a privilege that they get to close their door in my house.
But you're the chosen one.
And I'm like, and even when my mom's visiting, she'll be like, why are the kids' doors always closed? Like, what is happening there? I'm like, Mom, it's called privacy.
Ooh.
And
How
but
did that go?
that's the thing, because now, so the advantage I have is that, she lives in the US now. This is like a Western thing. This is her home. So now she can say all these things. It's totally fine. But, if I was, I guess if I was continuing to live in Dubai or in India or wherever, I don't think I would be able to say that as much. I don't know. It's so I think going into therapy has helped me be more, and recognizing my mom's trauma also. I think being an ally to her has been the single biggest improvement in our relationship when it comes to building those boundaries.
Absolutely. I agree with that because similar, I mean, like all of us, we all have been through some sort of trauma, especially in the South Asian space, right? And it's not like a blame game where I'm going to blame my parents. If anything, I have so much love for them because I know that they're also trying to figure out life too. And back then they were just trying to figure out life, just like us, they're trying to figure out life.
Yeah.
And my bond with her has grown closer than ever. It's so much stronger than it was before because she's also gained so much more awareness. My dad has gained so much more awareness. And that has created this beautiful bond where we can really express like to a point that we couldn't even imagine that we'd reach here.
Yeah.
It was like, and I have these conversations with my mom and I'm like, I can't believe this is real.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe I'm having this convo with my mom. And it's come to the point where like now my parents are like my best friends, Obviously, they are old, there will be days where we will have back and forths, but that love and respect will always be there.
Of course. And I think that is what really a lot of us are hoping to build and hoping to gain, because like you said, there's still a lot of trauma, right? I mean, there are still people like in my family that I know that will not accept the fact that I'm going to therapy. But it's also about me choosing myself and being like, hey, if they are not accepting it, I don't need to remind them of it every time I meet them and be like, accept it, I'm doing this, Yeah. But it's also about like figuring out where you should consciously step back because you don't want to add to that trauma.
Yes.
But again, there's so much of confusion like when it comes to our culture, because it's either adjust, right? Just adjust, or it's like speak out. And then you
there
sometimes
is a middle
feel,
ground though.
you see, that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. Like some of us are like, man, do I just continue adjusting my life? I have friends who are like stuck in bad marriages and they know they need to get out. But they're like, no, there's so much riding on this. I have children, I have family, my parents are old, and I don't want to be seen as a divorced woman. And then they're like, I'm just going to adjust and make this work. And it's throwing a number on their mental health, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, yes, but also look at what you're creating for your kids, right? It's like, what are they
modeling?
seeing?
Yeah.
And I remember back then it used to be like, if two people are having a problem and they're married, have kids.
Yes.
That'll solve
Oh my God.
everything.
Yes. That is so true.
And I was like, wait
I've
a
seen
second.
it so much happening.
How is that? Like, I don't even have words for it.
No.
But it's still very prevalent.
It is.
And that's adding to that trauma that you spoke about. You're not breaking the cycle.
You're continuing it. You're making it a little worse. Yeah.
Right. So how do you find that middle ground, right?
Yeah. This is how I kind of break it. I had this conversation with my mom and I broke it down to her. She was upset about something and she was just like, oh, I don't think I'm being perceived well, da 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 da. Things are not working out. And then I've come to realize, you brought about a very important point where we sometimes understand what our parents have been through or understand what the other person's been through. Not only does this help us kind of get a better understanding of what is going on in this entire collective space, you'll also come to the understanding that how a person reacts to you, how a person treats you, is not a reflection of who you are as a person
Yeah.
or what decisions you are making for yourself.
Yeah.
The reason why we sometimes struggle a lot when it's passed down to us or
Yeah.
when we're subjected to certain things that we think is the norm but shouldn't be
Yeah.
is this process of internalization.
Yeah.
We internalize certain core beliefs and certain thoughts that are very, very, very maladaptive to us,
Yeah.
right? And it's a matter of not completely getting rid of it,
Yeah.
but rather separating the two. So, for example, if you're my mom and you are kind of saying certain things to me, this is the best that you know, and then you're kind of saying that to me, and then I'm just going to keep absorbing it like a sponge. That's not going.
Yeah.
That's not us doing anything about it.
Right.
But rather, if I got the help that I needed, I would then find certain tools and strategies for me to then kind of better understand how do I separate this trauma away from who my mom is
Yeah.
as a person. How do I separate these maladaptive internalized thoughts and beliefs within
Yeah.
me from me so that I know that I'm my own person, and I'm someone who can be respected and well loved,
Yeah.
even though my decisions that I've made for myself or say for my extended family, like my kids or my
Yeah.
my children, is not disgraceful. It's not
Right.
dishonorable, right?
Yeah.
So understanding what has been internalized first.
Yeah.
And we do that by honestly speaking facing our demons.
Yeah.
Right? We got to look at it in the face, and that is going to bring a lot of emotions. Right? It's going to bring out every emotions. That's our stress response.
Yeah.
That's going to get activated. We're going to get
Right.
really angry or we're going to get real depressed. Again, our nervous system either jumps up or down, right? That's biological. It happens.
Right.
Right? It's a matter of identifying that. What is kind of activating us? What are certain triggers that kind of gets us there? And that
Yeah.
kind of brings me to what you were saying. Triggers are oftentimes like, okay, fine, if this triggers you, let's just avoid it altogether. Avoidance is such a common theme that we see in collectivist cultures such as South Asian families,
Yeah.
right? Triggers are not supposed to be avoided. Triggers are signals that show and indicate what is resolved and what is not resolved.
Exactly.
We keep weaponizing triggers, especially in South Asian communities. Shh, she's been divorced. Shh, shh, don't bring it up.
Yeah.
Oh, she lost her dad. Shh, 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 shh.
Yeah, oh,
Don't bring
yeah.
it up. Don't bring it up. Shh, shh, shh. Oh no. So, her family's not doing too well. They're struggling financially. Shh, shh, shh. Don't bring it up. Let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
No. Let's face it. If you
Yeah.
are a well-wisher, you would still go and talk to them and see how you can
Yeah.
help them, right? And these are, I'm saying this general theme of avoidance, it is also seen within ourselves
Yeah.
when a trigger kind of comes up.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be avoided.
Right.
Rather, dive into it, lean onto it, see what it's signaling.
Yeah.
What is it doing for you? What bodily sensations do you feel because of this trigger?
Yeah.
What thoughts are arising? How do you feel? Is there resentment? Is there anger? What do you feel?
Yeah.
And then it comes and shows to you, okay, see, this triggered me. Why? Because there's this core internal wound that I had as a child that is still not healed.
Yeah.
If we don't look inwards, how are we to change this cyclical generational trauma that's just constantly passed down to us, along with jewelry and recipes that we get? Even this is also passed down.
I am yet to check the recipes my mom has given.
No, and I think it's also, see, the challenge that I see, right, as someone who's been on the other side of the table, we live in this world of instant gratification, number one. Okay, we are so used to, you go to the doctor for a headache, you pop an aspirin, you're fine. But when it comes to like addressing inner child trauma, which are all terms I've been learning, but it's like, unless you go through the process of it might be therapy, or it might be like what a lot of people do these days, chat GPT or Instagram or
Gosh,
TikTok, right?
yeah. That is
But
harmful though in some
but
ways.
but at the same time, I'm like, isn't it better than nothing? Like, I'm a huge advocate of having that human connection. No matter what happens, even if you're using ChatGPT, even if you're using Instagram, even if you're using TikTok, you have to understand that it always needs to come with a human support. It's not a self sustaining process. At least I don't believe in that. But I think what when you were talking about like the inner child trauma and kind of acknowledging it, not everybody can afford therapy, or not everybody can you know join a retreat or something. So I think that's where what you guys are doing becomes all the more important, like having these support circles, giving these conversations attention and light that is not there. It is there, but I feel like it needs to, there is awareness,
Yeah.
but we need action.
Yeah.
Like, you tell people, okay, this is your inner child trauma, you need to sit with it, you need to write about it, you need to journal about it. Okay, what am I going to do with all this now?
Yeah.
How am I going to talk about this? How am I going to communicate about this? Because whatever said and done, that generational trauma that you have, the little things, it's embedded in your subconscious, and you need to know when it is going to come out. And I've had so much of like direct experience with this, right? Like growing up, like when my parents used to tell me that, hey, you need to get good grades, we are working so hard for you. Before, we came to the UAE. My dad used to work in Abu Dhabi, so he used to, and because Abu Dhabi didn't have like a lot of schools back then, we used to live in Dubai, so he used to do the commute. So every day I'd hear, and back then going to Abu Dhabi was like going to another country. So
Yeah,
it
I
was
can
like, I'm
imagine, yeah.
doing the commute. The least you could do is give me, like do well in school. And I was not a good student. I was like really bad. And so now with my kids, sometimes, without even knowing, I'll say something like, guys, you literally have nothing else to do but get good grades. Like, are you paying the bills? Are you paying the mortgage? And then I have to cut myself off almost and be like, wait a second, this is not how I want to raise my kids. I don't want to pass this on to them. And then ever so often, my son will be like, you know what? Have you been a child in 2025? Have you been a 16-year-old in 2025? I'm like what? Like, you missed out an Instagram story? And he said something to me that was like, so, like, I sat with it for a very long time. He's like, the access that we have, mom, it is so different than what you had. Like, they have, especially living in the US,
Yeah.
there isn't a lot of censorship, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
freedom of speech and all that good stuff, which I deeply value and respect. But when he said that, there is so much this peer pressure. There's the grades is like a separate thing, which is but there's a lot of peer pressure. There is this wanting to belong. There is living in a desi household while you're being raised in the US. I mean, it is. It is hard on them because
course.
I'm
Can't
trying to
imagine.
like put all these cultural values in them,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I didn't
can't
have
imagine.
growing up. And they're also trying to figure out a sense of like who they are, what their purpose is. And I'm telling them that you have to get good grades so you can go to college, you can get a good job, you can, all while we're living in a world of entrepreneurship, being scrappy, doing more with less, the traditional university system, everything is slowly being phased out. You can learn anything on the internet now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so it's not like how people were in the 90s or even early 2000s,
Yeah.
right? Our kids are being born to have conversations. They will question you, they will question your authority. But how can we make it a safe space for them? Because, like I said, it's all about instant gratification now.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
unless you take it upon yourself to be the change, you can't change anything,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
right? I can't depend on you to do the change for me. Like I have to take that difficult step. And a lot of times, people of my generation, we still have that trauma in us of don't poke the bear. It's everything is peaceful now.
My mom
It's
says,
okay.
"Don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat in still waters."
Like
Yeah.
it's all fine. Everything is happy. Everything is great.
Yeah.
You know, don't like just let things go. Learn to let things go. That's
Yeah.
what I keep hearing.
My
so
God, yeah.
so how do we like navigate that? Because like we are that generation that's kind of neither here nor there. We are very lost.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I deeply resonate because growing up, my parents always felt like I was very different as compared to my sisters. I was very much the opposite of my sisters. Very loud, very curious, very like, a risk taker. I want to do I would tell myself that I can do anything, and they're like, oh my God, who have we given birth to? Who is this girl? And growing up, they saw that I began to question a lot of things. I began to challenge stereotypes. And that became like a huge part of like who I am, not out of like a petty way that I'm going to challenge it because I'm petty, but rather like actually questioning to understand why it exists. And I remember even like when my divorce happened, the reason FemFam began was because a couple of years ago, I got a divorce and then that changed my life. And then I realized that there was a lack of community and that I wanted to create a space where I felt seen and heard. And even though like once like my divorce happened and I came back home and I had like my friend circle, my parents, my family, that support was there, but it wasn't the same. And there was such a lack of like togetherness in terms of me sort of sharing my views and my experiences with people who've perhaps been through something similar when it comes to relationships. That was sort of not there. And especially since I'm young. So navigating that was so incredibly difficult. And that's when I was like, I know I'm in pain right now and healing will take a while, as it always does. But what can I do with this pain right now? I can take it and turn it into something that can not just help me, but help other people too. And that's where you said you have to kind of just take that step, even though it's probably the scariest thing in the entire world, especially when you grow up in a household where they're like, take every step carefully,
Yep. Yep.
Just like hold your hand in your heart when you're like for anything. And that's the kind of household I grew up in. I'm sure you guys can relate to.
Of course.
So it's just like doing something like that where like starting a support group and then obviously then literally letting people know that, oh, I'm a divorced woman. And then on like cherry on top, talking about it so openly and then bringing people together to create that community. I remember the first time I told my family that I'm going to do this, they're like, okay, hold up, maybe bring out some chai. Right. What's happening here? And I'm like, okay, let me explain because I know this seems a lot and I understand their perspective because they're like, how can you just be so open? Like it's not exactly the greatest thing in the world. And I'm like, fair enough. I understand. But if we don't talk about it, who will?
Yeah.
There might be so many other Sukaynas out there.
Yeah.
What about them? Why not take this opportunity when we have the resources, when I'm privileged enough, right? I'm privileged enough to have an education, to have been brought up in a space where I can like earn for myself and perhaps give back to the world. If I am so privileged enough and, I'm not bounded by like location, perhaps, because look at the state of the world. There are some people, geographical luck, right? Or fate, where they're in a particular place where they can't do much. They don't have the resources. They're oppressed.
Yeah.
And the list goes on. But like, if I have that opportunity, why not?
Yeah.
And then when I spoke to them about it, it took them some time, but they started to warm up to it. And now my mom then sends the forward WhatsApp, LinkedIn posts of mine.
Oh, that's so awesome. I mean, that, like when things like that happen, I honestly, I go back to that inner child moment, right? I'm like, man, like 10-year-old Misha would be so proud. Like, I want to tell that person, like, life does get better.
It does.
Because when I started Summer Health, had gone through years of depression, anxiety, postpartum, all of that, right? And very similar to you, it's the passion that fueled building Summer Health. But before I started Summer Health, I had like a great job. I was living the American dream, the husband, the kids, the dog, like
The dog
the
for
dog,
sure.
like
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
like check, check,
Yeah,
check.
yeah.
And so when I decided to give up the job and start and be an entrepreneur with zero technical know-how or zero knowledge of like what even goes into building a company,
Yeah.
I got, again, a lot of silence, a lot of you're going to regret this decision, a lot of, oh, you're so privileged to be doing this because your husband's working. So this is like a little hobby for you. But I think the other thing that really got to me is you did your master's in HR. You're giving up years of that education. You're giving up years of, working in HR to do something that you have no idea will ever become anything. And it's in mental health. Like, why couldn't you choose like a makeup brand or something? So sometimes the hardest steps or the hardest things that you want to pursue comes with that undying resilience, passion, and perseverance of I'm going to jump and that net is just going to appear. I just do it, right? And I keep joking because I tell my husband, like, if anyone asks us to go bungee jumping, I'd probably jump even before they finish the sentence. Right? They'd be like, Misha, can you? And I'd be like, whoop, I'll be down. But I think my husband would be like, wait, why am I jumping? Who's going to be there? Is there like a parachute? Is there a backup parachute?
Yeah.
So very, just like you said, that each step has to be thought out carefully because that is, again,
Yeah.
trauma. We don't realize it. We'll say, oh my God, like he really thinks through things. That's amazing. But it's actually trauma that our parents were not, we never did anything that was risky.
Yeah.
You listen to your elders, you do what they ask you to do, and you follow it blindly because they know best. That's it. No questions asked.
Yep.
Right? And so I think what you guys are doing, just providing that sort of support circle where a lot of women can finally question things like, why did I do this? Why did I, get into an arranged marriage? Or why did, like, whatever it is, like, those questions that you just want to ask and give it. Sometimes when you say things out loud, it just feels so much lighter.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you want to add on like how adding on to like literally saying things and the idea of community, how that literally changes people?
Oh, yeah. I was actually just teaching this in class yesterday.
Professor.
This much also. But yes, when it comes to well-being, there's this model called the biopsychosocial model.
Okay.
Bio is in case you need for your physical health. So this could be, are you physically well? Do you have access to healthcare? Do you have access to medications that is good for you? All of that. Psychological or psych is, again, do you have access to mental health care? Do you have the money to access it? Do you have money for it? Do you have health insurance that gets you to, that has your mental health coverage?
Right.
All of that. Sometimes when these two things don't particularly work out, we fall on social. That's community care. Think about it this way, right? Think about a person who is living in a very violent neighborhood, right? A lot of violence, robbery, all of that. They have very good therapist, and they have access to the medication for their anxiety. They still step out of that house. They're still going to be so scared.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where community plays such a huge role. Community offers something entirely different as compared to psychological support, as well as, of course, physical health support. Those two are also incredibly important.
Of course.
But community support is something that is more affordable,
Yeah.
right? And if you find, and the currency that is used over there is the sense of emotional safety.
Yeah.
Emotional safety, trust, understanding, sometimes brotherhood or sisterhood, that kind of forms, and FemFam was formed in that sisterhood, right? So that's what this community support does. We don't heal in isolation.
Yeah.
We never will heal in isolation. That is why, when you're incredibly depressed and you go to the therapist would actually kind of challenge you to, okay, let's at least go on a walk. You don't have to talk to anyone. At least step out of the room and just heat your food, depending on it. Right? So, with that being said, right, why is that? It's being like mingle with community or the world around you instead of just isolating yourself in a deep dark room and just bed rotting. It makes a huge difference.
Of course, of course.
Yes.
I think even when seeing others who've gone through your same journey or something similar to it, and seeing someone who's come through that, it gives you so much of hope.
Yes.
Like for me, when I was going through my postpartum depression, I honestly didn't speak to anybody because in our culture we don't talk about postpartum depression.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist,
Yeah.
right?
What is that? Yeah.
It's like, why are you sad? There's no, or it's always like you're not sleeping enough, or things like people have given birth in the fields, and they're like,
Yeah.
so there is a lot of minimizing your pain, almost gaslighting the whole process of it's all in your head.
It is supposed to be in your head though. Yeah.
It's like you're just imagining things, and this is all normal. You don't need to feel so sad about it, or all of those things. So I grew up, I mean, like I was in this environment of, first of all, I was in the US. I was struggling mentally. And then, having a baby and then going through that postpartum depression and just not having anyone to talk to. First of all, I didn't even know it was postpartum because we never spoke about it. So I didn't have words for it. I just thought I'm just going crazy and I'm dying and I just have to weather the storm. And that's what I ended up doing. So there was a lot of unhealed wounds, a lot of things that I hadn't spoken about. It's only when I started therapy about 4 years ago that all of this kind of, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how I felt. This is why I felt it. This is what I did. And kind of like going back a little bit to fix those little scars so that I can be a better, partner, wife, mother, whatever.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this up.
But the thing is, it's only when I started this journey of therapy and I started Summer Health and I started talking to people and I started saying, I went through postpartum depression, and it's amazing the amount of people that have come to me and said, oh my God, we were going through this exact same thing, but I didn't know you were going through it, but I was going through it at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Because we were all this big group of friends in the US and we all had kids at the same time. So like from 2008 onwards, like they were like kids galore, right? And we all did our baby showers together. We all did the first birthdays together. And I was just telling my friend, when it was his like third birthday, the previous night, and this is third birthday because I think for me that postpartum just kind of went, it
Stretched out.
just like stretched out, right? But I remember the first time I had that breakdown was just before his first birthday, and then again like before his third birthday or something, because I was pregnant again. And I was telling her, I was a mess the previous night. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to cancel the birthday. I didn't want to see anyone. And she's like, oh my God, like I was going through this anxiety at the same time because she was pregnant and she didn't know whether she wanted to like, continue. And I was like, man, if we had all just spoken about it back then, but we just didn't know any better. But now it's like anytime anyone like had a baby, I'm like, hey, have you spoken to a gynecologist? Like, how are you feeling? Are you? It's always good to have these conversations, irrespective of whether you'll go through it or not,
Absolutely.
Because a lot of the time they'll just be like, oh, it's just your baby blues. It's fine. Like you've lost your sense of independence. That's what this is. But
It's more than that.
it's more than that. And again, like you said, it's about the power of community, having these conversations, bringing it to the table that really allows us to gain those perspectives and talk to someone else who might be going through something like this. There is a lot of power in collective voices, right? And so I'd like to sort of end this by understanding, like, when is your next community meet? Is it in the works? Is it happening?
Yes, actually,
Very
Sukayna.
soon, very soon. In fact, I mean, we've had a lot going on this September. We just had a talk at Murdoch. We're very grateful. We met Naja Mustafa there. It was great. So many insights. I got to learn a lot. Obviously, I come from a journalism background.
Right.
So for me, I got to learn from Anusuya, all the other experts there. So it was great for us. But we've got a lot coming in next month too. We do have our monthly meetups for FemFam. You know, grab our coffees, just talk heart to heart, you know, bond over different various things, and also have different sorts of activities too. And we also have an upcoming session with a mental health facilitator and a pre-marriage counselor happening this Sunday. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's
Quite
amazing.
a bit. Did
That's amazing.
I say that in one breath? Quite a bit.
So people can just follow you through your Instagram handle, which I believe is FemFam. So FEM.
FemFam Dubai. Yeah.
FemFam Dubai.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all one word?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect,
Yes.
perfect. So FemFam Dubai. And this has been so awesome. I'm so glad that we got to meet.
Likewise.
And have this conversation. Hopefully it's the first of many to come. And like I said, you know, if I think these communities really gives us the eyes and ears on the ground of what is happening beyond the LinkedIn posts or you know the research that comes out. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
you know, you sometimes when you actually see another human going through something, it just makes your pain or like whatever you're going through
A little less lighter.
Exactly. I mean, I actually physically feel that lightness when I talk to people. Like, I don't know if it's like just a me
happens
thing or
to
if
me as well.
everyone,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you can actually feel that kind of, oh, I can breathe now. And that wasn't so hard.
Yeah.
You know, like now saying that I had postpartum and I had depression, it just rolls off the tongue so easily, but it was not easy before.
Can't imagine. Yeah.
Right. And so it's actually the power of community that's allowed me to have these conversations. And you know, it's like you just said, you have to make that conscious decision to move forward. You can have all the resources, all the tools, all the support, everything, but you have to feel it in you to be like, I'm going to use this right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's, again, very easy when put on pen and paper, like, oh, this is what you do, this is what da 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's actually time to implement it. Not simple.
Yeah.
Not
It's
easy,
very-
not simple, not cute, messy. But a very, very, very important journey is the journey of growth where you turn things around.
Yeah.
And chances are you're not going to turn the entire thing to 180
Of
degrees.
course. Yeah.
A little bit is still a lot.
Yeah.
And this way you are modeling to the future generations, hey, this is how I'm changing things around
Yeah.
for myself. And when your kids see you modeling that kind of growth, I promise you the kids are learning that they're definitely going, while they don't they while kids never do what you ask them to do, they will always do what you do.
Yeah. They mirror you.
They mirror you.
It's all the unspoken
Yes.
stuff that comes to bite you in the
Yeah. So it's not perfection, it's progress and consistency.
right,
That's
of course.
it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
guys.
you,
This has been
Misha.
Thank you for
lovely.
your honesty and for sharing
No,
your
of course,
experiences.
of course.
I feel like we all really deeply connected here, and I got to
Yeah.
learn so much. So I
Yeah.
greatly appreciate that.
fantastic.
Thank you, Misha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.